Hello. It's working. So hi folks, really pleased to be here today, and we're BBC News Labs, a small underfunded research and development area of BBC News. So just before we get started with that in mind, I think tomorrow you're going to see our boss Robin. If you like our APIs, can you please mention it to him? That would be really much appreciated. Okay. So today we've got myself, Matt Shearer. I'm leading BBC News Labs. We've spent the last year doing a little bit. We plan to do a lot more and hopefully make appearances at more hack days. Really pleased to be here with Yahoo. Jeremy Tarling, our data architect. Paul Wilton, tech architect. And also you'll notice some other folks with these t-shirts on milling around. We've got Victor over here who's around to help out for a while. Matt Haynes over there, and Mark Ransby somewhere. At home. So what we're going to talk about very quickly is a bit of history, where we are now, what's possible with the APIs, and then go into the APIs. And apologies, we don't have any live coding. We're a bit more risk averse. So without further delay, I'll get started. So about a year ago, so we've just had our first birthday, BBC News was getting excited about semantic technologies and really wanted to look at what possibilities were available with using RDF and inference queries to produce some new product ideas for BBC News. But the problem is that all of our articles are locked up in kind of quite an old style CMS system with respect to CMS, which is really good, but it's basically article blobs, and we couldn't get at the actual concepts in there. So we built what we call the News Juicer, and you'll be able to sign up to the APIs later. We'll spread the details around. And the idea here is that what we do is we grab BBC News and sport articles as they're being published. We extract the concepts using a couple of different concept extraction engines. We match the DBpedia concepts, then we annotate the articles back with those concepts, push them into a triple store. So we've got an RDF store that we're using called Big Owl M5. And then we've exposed these APIs so that then you can pull out these sort of news articles using Sparkle queries and inference searches, which we'll talk about a bit later. And so here's just a couple of screenshots of prototypes we built last year using GeoSparkle queries, and also the interesting bit is the inference queries. So on the right-hand side there, you'll see an example where we've got articles within a kind of a vector-based GeoSparkle query, but also the interesting bit is that we're also bringing back basically within that sort of vector companies that have a relationship with that area, and also people who have a relationship with that area. So stories about companies that have relationships, etc. Anyway, we'll get on to the interesting bit in a minute, but where we are now is we've got about 84,500 articles that have been juiced, so juiced and tagged with semantic annotations. So that's from News and Sport, and the news spans back to 2001, so it's quite a broad spread. We've got 4 APIs which you can use today, potentially 5, but there was only 3 yesterday, and we're exposing it via Mashery, so we'll give the details out in a bit, and you can get an API key. And a couple of things I want to quickly say before we move on is that it's an R&D platform, so it might be a bit wobbly, but just get us on our IRC if you need help. And also the keys you get this weekend, you'll be able to keep and continue using. So we're opening up the registration for you folks this weekend, but you can use the keys after this weekend, okay? And without further delay, I'm going to hand over to Paul Wilton.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Paul Wilton. I work for October. I've been helping these guys with the semantics on the News Juicer. And as Matt said, we've got 80,000 plus news articles right up to date, right up to this morning, all semantically annotated with hundreds of thousands of linked data entities. So this isn't flat tagging, this is semantic annotation. So what does that mean? This means that for every semantic concept that's annotated against a news article, there's like a massive knowledge graph that sits behind those semantic concepts. And those linked data entities are all from DBpedia. And so you've got the whole of the DBpedia ontology at your disposal to query, to aggregate news against. So this is really, really powerful stuff. So When we talk about an article that may be annotated with, say, Yahoo, we know that Yahoo's an organization, we know what industry Yahoo is in, we know what associations that's got to other people and other organizations. Big graph of knowledge behind here. You can query that whole graph of knowledge on our API using Sparkle. Hopefully some of you guys are familiar with Sparkle. It's the RDF query language. It's not as complex as what it seems, and we've made it simple for you because you don't have to deal with consuming RDF coming back from the APIs, you just deal with JSON. And the JSON's in a nice friendly format. You do a Sparkle query, you get back news articles in JSON, which you can then mash up and render. You can also do geospatial queries, so for many of these concepts, all the places have lats and longs associated with them, and you can do geosparkle and geospatial and general Sparkle queries to do these aggregations. So I'll hand over to JT, and he'll tell you how the APIs work.
Thanks, Paul. Morning, everybody. So yeah, we've got 4 API endpoints that we want to talk to you about today. The article semantic annotation one, a full text search, which is kind of more familiar if you're not so familiar with the kind of Sparkle semantic technologies, a concept co-occurrence search, and a concept search. So first of all, the article semantic annotation API. So this is basically getting a list of BBC News articles that have been annotated with a particular concept. So it might be any of the examples we give below here, so articles about conservative politicians. And notice that kind of subtlety, the thing that Paul referred to there, we're not kind of tagging with flat concepts here, we're annotating with the kind of DBpedia graph, so types of things, and the types of things themselves can then be further filtered by using a kind of full Sparkle query. As Paul said, it's you can use the full power of the Sparkle query language. Obviously, it needs to be URL encoded. There's plenty of examples on our docs page on the API, so please do have a go. I'm tempted to do a sort of live fetch some of this stuff. What it'll basically return is JSON, and the JSON will be structured around the article, and for each article you'll get the usual kind of title, URL, and then the annotations, so the people, places, organizations that have been associated with the article that article mentions or is about, basically. So yeah, a couple of other examples at the bottom there. Places within 25 miles of Chester. So yes, we can do geospatial querying, and potentially very powerful. We've been playing around with that in terms of how we might look at the BBC local news websites. Imagine sort of, instead of just having the 40 or so news regions that the BBC currently provides locally, we could have a much more personal experience of news based around where I am now, for example, or within a kind of radius. Okay, so the second API, which is your kind of more traditional, query for a concept and match it, but here we're searching the text of the articles that are held in the database. So this is probably a good place to get into the data if you're not so comfortable with the semantic technologies. And there are some filters you can apply. So you can filter by section of the news website, politics, business, etc. You can specify a date range before or after, and you can limit your results. I think the default is 10. You can have anything up to 50, specify an offset, etc. And so an example here, find 5 articles with the words horse meat and Tesco's from the UK section since Jan 1st, 2012. And that's a typical kind of search that this API is useful for. So concept co-occurrence, this is moving back perhaps into the sort of semantic and kind of graph-based world. This is the idea of, people who like this also like that kind of thing. So in this case, that's articles that are annotated with this concept, this person, are also annotated with this other person. So it's that kind of, almost like a sort of news view of a person's social graph. Not exactly a social graph, but you get the idea. It's like articles that mention David Cameron also mention Ed Miliband and a bunch of other people. This is a kind of really interesting thing to look at over time. So we've had this up for a while now, and 6 months ago you could sort of see how someone's graph would sort of change over time. So taking Jimmy Savile, for example, 6 months ago his kind of news graph was like, Radio 1 DJs and philanthropists and otherwise upstanding people, and you look at it now and it's, police constables and former Director Generals of the BBC and Gary Glitter, unfortunately. So finally, this API that we just added yesterday, this is just a quick way to kind of get a concept. So if you're not sure if there's a kind of David Cameron or a John Smith concept in our database, you can fetch it out and it will return the URI for that concept, which you can then use to go and see if you've got articles annotated with it. That's it. So Thanks very much, Matt. Shall I hand back to you for sort of closing remarks?
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jeremy. Okay, thanks everyone. And we've got some API key details here, so I'm also going to spread them around the room on some piece of paper so you can see where to go, username and pass. There's also an IRC that we're going to be sitting on if you've got any questions, and also have a look round if you want to talk to someone for people in this T-shirt, and we'll give you help out. So thank you very much, and hope to see you for the rest of today. Cheers.
Thank you very much, BBC. We appreciate it.